cannot fool people, Mecha Dragon Man.
I can fool you. I'm going to replace you.
Oh. Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. I just was getting ready for stream, you know. Welcome. We're great to have you here. Actually, we are really happy to have you here. And we're not talking about dragons today, although anytime you talk about dragons, that would be fantastic. Today, we are talking about Session 0. That's right. How to go from 0 to hero. And I am wearing a really cool Voltron shirt. Maybe this is how Voltron started out. You don't know. You don't know that it wasn't a bunch of cats with boxes and swords and sticks. You don't know that because you don't know Voltron. But we're going to find out from these wonderful guests what they do in Session 0. And I just realized there's probably an echo. Oh, yay. I'm a genius. I literally just had that running in the background. And no one, it's okay. No one can interrupt me because
we were just very amused. That's all.
Kind of sounds like you still do.
I like that.
Am I the only one hearing that?
I don't hear it anymore.
Well, I don't hear it anymore.
It must be me. I'm also a genius, Jamie. That's where we're at right now.
Can confirm.
Well, I'm with all geniuses. So we're going to talk today about Session 0 with our guests who are going to give us some of their best tips and tricks for how they like to start a session off to make sure that the campaign goes phenomenally, as well as maybe some end of session stuff. My name is Jamie Van Dorn. I'm the founder and CEO of Neverending. I'll tell you really quick about us before I push it over to our guests to talk all about themselves and introduce themselves. So Neverending is a really cool platform that we are working on, where you're going to be able to create all kinds of characters and webcomics and even animated videos so that you can bring your stories to life. Isn't that exciting? We think it's exciting. It's a lot of work too, so you should come check out the 2D character portrait maker that we have, where you can make characters and tokens and NPCs and all that fun stuff. It's just a little teaser app, but we'd love for you to try it out. Give us feedback. Tell us what kind of character options you want to see, so that
it's real good.
When we launch, thank you, Diana. So when we launch the full platform, you know, we got all the stuff in it that you want. So with that, I will kick it over to our wonderful, amazing, phenomenal, talented guests, some of whom have been on camera before, and one of whom is brand new. We love new people. Woo! All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I wish I can do as much animation. I sort of promised that Vogue if like the silence was there. And so yeah, no silence, just voguing. That's what you would see. Hi everyone, my name is Alyx. You can find me on Twitter at Daredevil Alyx. I'm a TTRPG designer. I'm a streamer. I love doing a lot of streams for charity, and I really care about increasing queer media, queer Asian representation in the media and play. So I'm also a filmmaker, but I love hanging out and storytelling. And so thanks so much, Jamie, for having me here, because I just love TTRPGs. You can make them cinematic your own way. You're creating the story yourself. You're taking control. And I really want to make it as accessible to individuals and feel authentic to people's cultures and how they want to be represented in these stories as well that we're telling.
I love it. I'm here for all of that.
Thanks. I'm gonna pass it on. I'm just gonna throw this hot potato, throw it this way somewhere.
Hi, everybody. You, me, you, me, me. Okay, hey guys.
Yo, ma.
Boy, this is off to just like 100% perfect start, isn't it? I'm
so
Diana DiMicco. I am one of the dumpster fires present for this morning's streams. I'm the partnership manager over at Die Hard Dice. I am one half of Barden Barbarian, a stream that does a whole bunch of Call of Cthulhu, D&D, Vampire the Masquerade, you name it, we've done it. Sometimes poorly. And I'm the resident storyteller for Renegade Games, so you can catch me over there running Vampire, all kinds of World of Darkness stuff too.
Sweet.
Diana's not a dumpster fire. Anyways, hey, what's up? My name is Josh. I do a whole lot of things, but I am the community and content manager over at Demiplane. I am also the assistant director of ambassadors for Jasper's Game Day. Diana / Bard and Barbarian are one of my ambassadors. Go check them out. But when I'm not doing that, I am a freelance game designer. I'm a variety Twitch streamer, and I perform on a variety of shows and podcasts whenever I have the time. So,
And Master of Leggings.
Stoked to be here, and Master of Leggings. Although I'm gonna just let you know right now, I'm not wearing leggings. I'm wearing sweats this morning.
Me too.
Nice.
Sweats are just loose leggings, aren't they?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, kind of.
Don't get
You-
all
you want
philosophical
to
this
send-
early.
Unless you're wearing the TikTok ones, which accentuate the butt.
Mm. Look,
And the D on each cheek. I'm waiting for those.
Are we asking Josh to model the TikTok leggings whenever you receive them?
okay, deal.
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
You hear that, folks?
It's on the internet
This
now. You
is
can't get away from
you
it.
can't you can't lie to the internet.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Someone
This is
send me a link.
evolving so quickly, like from the beginning, which means it's going to be a fantastic stream. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic stream. So to kick us off, I thought I would share a little bit about what I do for session 0, which is really the minimum. Like, I basically, I don't always have a lot of time to DM, especially now that I launched Neverending. Like, the funny story, I launched Neverending in part because I wanted some really cool tools to be able to tell my stories and to enhance my D&D gameplay, and now I almost never play. So there you go. That's how that works out. But I really love to get into the backstories and stuff, and so like what I have done in the past is worked with my players on kind of what their backstory is, and then working with them on creating a little vignette that then gets read as almost like a, well, to Alex's point, almost like a cinematic description of their introduction into the world, which is how maybe one character meets them. Because I you know, you can do the like everybody meets in a tavern, and there's nothing wrong with that. I shouldn't say it with that tone of voice if I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that. But I like to kind of be like, okay, how does this character know this character? How did they get introduced? And then write up these little kind of almost short story, like paragraph vignettes. But I know that there's a lot of other tools and tips and ways to ensure that the table is a safe space, especially if you have people that haven't gamed together before or don't know each other as well. There's different things that people might want to do if they're telling different kinds of stories. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. I'd love to hear what you guys do. That's probably so much better and that I can then steal from.
So the safety tools are something that's super duper important to me personally. I run right now almost exclusively horror games. So it is very important to go ahead and put some bumpers on that particular bowling lane and make sure that you aren't going to veer too far into a zone that makes someone uncomfortable. And obviously, you know, going over lines and veils is going to be a good idea. It's going to give you an idea of where your table composition lies.
What are lines and veils?
Lines and veils. So lines and veils are going to be those things that are non-negotiable items to be excluded from games. Oftentimes the list of non-negotiables includes racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexual encounters of kinds, you know, rape, domestic violence, violence against children, all of those things that don't need to be in a story to make it a good story. And have a very high propensity to trigger some individuals. And
yeah, because we can't know what people have been through, what traumas they've been through, the things that they've experienced in their personal life, and people aren't obligated to share that with you as a way to like say, don't do this because this horrible thing happened to me. You know, they should just be able to share that there are certain things that they're just not comfortable with.
well, exactly. And I mean, as Yeah, I view it as my responsibility as the GM, the dungeon master, the storyteller, the keeper, whatever that position is called in the system that you're using, to let people know, hey guys, this is a space that will not include these things. Hard stop. If you have other items that you want added to this list but don't feel comfortable sharing, just drop a quick note. You can even, there are some ways to do it anonymously too, so that you don't have to feel like you're pressuring players for that information. And additionally, I always ask for personal phobias. So, and it's not necessarily a line or a veil thing, but it does give you an indication of what situations, what scenarios, what eldritch horrors are going to inadvertently cause some adverse reactions with your players. So I always ask for that too, just because you might not know that something's going to trigger you until it happens, which means that you should put safety parameters in place for that. Things like the X card that you can put in chat, where that just full stop ends the scene and you move on, no questions asked, things like that. So lines and veils are super duper important for that session 0. It's probably the biggest piece of making sure that your table's gonna be fun for everybody involved, right?
Yeah, Artland actually brought up in chat that a link shared Google Doc is default anonymous, so it's a great way for people to be able to just list out stuff and nobody knows who listed out what. It's just, you just get this great list of things.
Yeah, I'm really happy we're talking about safety tools right off the bat, because gaming is not fun if you're uncomfortable. Like, why game in the first place? If you're uncomfortable, it's not fun. Like, that's the point of why we're all gaming, really. And so I like to also bring up consent in games as well. If like there's PvP, like player against player, or like NPC versus PC, I always ask, like, because I like to play like romantic games or horror games. Like those games are like where I like straddle. Like yesterday I was doing Bluebird's Bride, and then I did a charity stream for the Flowers Court, where we're all just like doing like sexual innuendos on a game show, like the Hunger Games. And so if someone, you like just getting what the mood is, getting what the tone is, being like, do you want intense body gore and feminine horror and all these things, or are you comfortable with this? And if I'm going to do this to your PC, like if I'm going to kiss you or I'm going to hold your hand, it's like consent is sexy. That's just like at the end of the day. And Thirsty Sword Lesbians, we do that too. And so I love there's so many safety tools. I use the one from Monty Cook. They have a really great like list if you don't have enough topics as well, because I know that sometimes people sometimes like draw blanks when they're just like, I don't know. But also in the game, you don't know when it triggers, so you can just have like an open door policy. And so I usually describe as the players that, for example, my line is spiders, and then I'm just like, why do I have spiders in my line? I describe it all the time because I'm a GM for Magpie, and so I'm just like, oh, this is my own example. And so I just tell people, if I'm a player going through the world and spiders rain down my head, that's like really gross. I can't believe it, but here we are. And so I tell people that it's okay to rewrite the fiction. Tell me like, stop, this is an X, like we're not going to go there. And I can tell you fire ants rain on your head, same effect, still gross, but they're not spiders. And so never be afraid of trying to rewrite the script to make sure that you're comfortable. And then having these veils, something that you can just throw a veil over so that you talk about it, like you can fade to black on it, but it's not like explicit at all. And so it's definitely different for your group, whatever your safety tools you're using.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And what I kind of want to touch on here is already been mentioned in chat, but the benefit of having those kind of boundaries in place is that then you can really lean into whatever themes are on the table, and you know that everyone's going to feel comfortable with it. So you don't have to be like, can I push this? How far can I push this? Because if we've all agreed that, for instance, something where we're trying to survive the elements and it's freezing cold and it's burning hot, if we've all agreed that that's on the table, then we can really lean into that. And even if our characters are having a hard time with it, like the players are still good. And I think that's really the most important thing, is it lets you very clearly distinguish between, hey, my character is going through it right now, but like I'm fine, right? Josh is cool. My character, not so much.
I think that's an important concept to bring up, right? There are a lot of naysayers when it comes to the concept of that lines and veils document and discussing those things ahead of time that say, well, you can't limit what I want to do in my game this much. This is so constricting. This doesn't allow me to do what I want to do. But the fact of the matter is that it really closing off some of those avenues opens up so much more. Last night I had an eldritch horror lay eggs in the mouths of one of my players because we all knew that was going to be okay.
Totally not.
Yeah, as one does. For my Jasper's Game Day charity fundraiser.
Thanks, one Josh. Does. Hey, yeah. I got you.
But having those lines and veils and those buffers in place really allows you to take a deep dive into everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good point. The other thing is that there's also already boundaries. I mean, you already have boundaries. You know that you're not just going to, kill all your players' characters just willy-nilly, just for the fun of it. You're probably not going to allow, hopefully, someone to just one person to completely disrupt the game, by either having them have lead character syndrome. Is that what it's called? What is it called?
Like main character syndrome.
Main character syndrome.
Main character.
Thank you. Jeez, I'm like, I clearly need another cup of coffee.
You were right there. You were with it.
I was right. I was right there. I was right there. And then, or somebody who just completely disrupts the game, because you would not want your players to come along and not have it if you're the GM or the narrator or whatever, you wouldn't want one player to make it uncomfortable for you as the GM. So it's that same thing. It's just that recognizing that there are already boundaries and limitations on this. This is just making some more of them explicit. And I agree with you, Diana. I think that once there are some guardrails, it actually bounds the space so that you can explore more.
That was Josh's thing. I just commandeered.
Was it? Oh.
every good idea I've had comes from Diana.
Shut up. I really like the idea that session zeros are designed to. I mean, it's for you too, right? As the game master, it allows you to figure out, okay, what is this dynamic? So usually my session zeros are actually two-parter. So that first part is all about character creation and kind of coming up conceptually with what story do we want to tell?
Yeah.
What elements do we want to make sure we include? What elements do we want to make sure we avoid? And then the second part of that is always just like a quick 30-minute scenario that we pop those new characters into and we see how it works. We see if there's going to be issues with crosstalk. We see if there's going to be issues with main character syndrome. We see if there are going to be issues with PvP problems, like taking it for a little test drive that it's understood that it's removed from the actual story that you're telling. It also allows your players to get super comfortable with that character, right? Like it's almost like getting into a new car. You take some time to adjust the seat and get it just right and move your mirrors around and make sure that is a comfortable fit. But
are these some of the same things that you guys do for people that you've gamed with regularly? Because a lot of people, they're gaming with the same group regularly, or there might occasionally just be one new person coming in.
100%. Any game that you are stepping into, especially, and I think I can safely say, Alyx and Josh, you guys are primarily streaming your games now, aren't you? They're not at home.
I would say the vast majority. I've got I've got a session zero for a new game that's starting up tomorrow that I actually get to be a player in. I'm excited about that, but for the most part, whether it's a streamed game or like a paid session that I'm running or just a home game with friends, I still do a session zero. It looks a little different, like based on the context. But I'm always doing a session 0, exactly kind of like what you said, to figure out, okay, how are our characters meshing together? How are our different, like, you know, lines and veils gonna add up? What are the safety tools that we're using, right? Are we using cards? Are we using like hand signals? If we're in a Zoom call, are we, like, you know, sending messages in the Zoom chat? But then similarly, I also like to do a little like test RP, a little like test first combat. Yeah. I've got like notes that I keep on me at all times for like, this is my session 0, like test combat, how to teach combat in a new system scenario that I use. So I'm all about that.
Josh is at the
matter
grocery store pulling out the notes. And... So I want to have you had an opportunity to hear about our Lord and Savior?
Look.
Ooh.
Keep notes. You're a way better dungeon master than I am.
Alyx, what about you? Streaming or in person, or how are you handling some of these things?
I'm doing it both. I feel like I do a lot of, like, as a GM for Magpie, all my games are new. Like, I just get emails and I have no idea who they are until I message them and I say, here are your lines and veils, and here is how you play the game. Join me at this time and we're gonna spend 4 hours together. And so they're like, whoa, what is the experience we're gonna get into? So it's really great. It's really fun. And so I need a home game for sure. It's offline with my friends, because you can really burn out from doing, you know, stream online things. And so I feel like with my group of friends, we have established, like, I met them like 3 years ago on Facebook. Like, you know, at the start of the pandemic, I was just like, wow, I have so much time in my hands, what am I gonna do? And so I met these random folks on Facebook. That's where you meet your friends. My friends, actually. And so, strangers, recommend it. And so and we established those lines and veils really early, and we play a bunch of systems, and we just do like check-ins. I think like session 0s sets the tone, and then you do like regular check-ins. You like I need to see like that face to face to see like, oh, was that action okay? And so it's really good. So we also have like a DM retro where we talk to each other, saying like, what happened after? Well, we'll touch that, but what happened after? How can we improve? Feedback, things like that. But for the online, for sure, like, I think character creation and safety tool, that session 0 takes like about an hour and a half. Like, it really sounds like a long time, but it actually is. Like, you need that time to really establish dynamics, talk to each other, create those characters. I wish I had like 30 more minutes to do that scenario. That's like a really great idea. I might just like incorporate that.
Steal it, take it, it's fun.
I will. I mean, all great.
My favorite thing to do in that scenario is to give my players just a punching bag. Because especially for me, a lot of the time I'm introducing people to a new system or something that they're not cozy with the way that they might be with D&D. So things like Vampire, where you really want to test out your powers. Things like Call of Cthulhu, where you really want to see exactly how badly you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I give the characters an opportunity to test out all of those things that they've been like anxiously waiting to do, but might not be able to handle immediately in the actual game. And you know, it's good stress relief. I'm not gonna lie. If I present you with a douchebag in a tavern, and you kind of get to take out some of your frustration on that NPC, then you're ready to go. Your gutters are cleaned out, and you're ready for that first session.
Yes, you heard it here, folks. Diana has all the good ideas, TM. So
oh, I love it. It's trademarked now.
I actually like that more than my some of my usual session 0 things. So I've legitimately, one of my favorite ones I just stole from 3rd edition D&D, the Book of Challenges, which is where you're in a wizard's tower and a bunch of animal familiars got loose. Catch them, and I go into initiative, but you're trying to like catch a cat and a snake and an owl and a rat, and so you're going through.
A question, really quick.
Yeah, sure.
When you do that, do you have to catch them all?
Yes.
Pokemon.
Yeah, and then you put them in little containers called cages because Pokeballs don't exist in D&D yet. So anyway, but so I run them through that encounter in initiative so that they also learn that, okay, I can try to grapple, or I can try to like move something else on my turn, and try to teach like some creative combat tactics as well in that scenario. It's one of my favorite session zeros if I've got new players.
And I imagine that probably gives you as the GM a lot of information too, right? Like it
Yeah.
shows you how your players are going to approach problem solving from different directions. You might have one character who's like, okay, I pick up 5 cats by the tail and I swing them around above my head and toss them in a cage. Or you might have that person who's like, I lure the squirrel in with a piece of bread. Like it gives you as the dungeon master an inkling as to how problems are going to get addressed in game as well.
Absolutely. And just aside, I have never seen someone get more excited about a natural 20 than to catch the owl as it flew overhead and just reach up and grab it out of the air. The most hype I have ever seen an individual player be at a natural 20 was that moment.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Alyx, how? So I'm really curious, and I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm gonna derail here because I want to know for me. I mentioned earlier I'm super careful about table composition. I'm really weird about who I put down to play together. I imagine that you probably have to feel out that table a lot more carefully when you're playing with a bunch of strangers who probably don't know each other, who definitely don't know you, and who are learning a new system. So how do you sort of prime that pump to make sure that it's going to be a positive experience other than lines and veils and those safety tools? Are there any other tricks that you have, any tips for someone who might want to try doing that?
Try, yeah, okay, sure. I hear you. I got you. You know, honestly, I think when I try to gather new, like I do an average of like, I used to do an average of like 3 new games with like all these new people. And I guess like I would just ask them questions. Like if it's like around a topic like Avatar, I'd be like, what was your favorite episode in Avatar? And then I would be like, mine was this episode where they all were little kids and they were on like Fire Ember Island, just like it's, I think the best way to, like my style personally is if you can make someone laugh, they become your best friend on like you're such a warm person, Diana, that I feel like you would have no problem just like asking people questions, but asking things that like are important to them, I feel, and getting excited about their character. I think, and like I run a lot of like Powered by the Apocalypse, and so being fans of your characters, just like hyping people up and being like, that's a really cool idea, what kind of relationship are you building? So I feel dynamics out by asking people like something about their day, even like doing something personal, like, and I separate people from like the players and like characters, and I ask characters who they are as people, but then I'm just like, you are players first. I'm gonna ask you who you are, give me a fun fact about yourself, what's your claim to fame, and then I'll be
Two
like,
truths and a lie.
Yeah, two truths and a lie. Just like do something like an icebreaker, just get people talking. I think that's like just I think like in the short amount of time, I only have like 4 hours with people. So, so yeah.
Only
just like
4 hours.
I only have 4. I know. I just said 4 hours. Like
You were like only. Oh, I'm so sorry that all we have are 4 hours together. Now I get it. That is, you are obviously running a fantastic table, so 4 hours probably does not feel like enough. Like legitimately.
It's not.
And I just can't imagine being away from work for 4 hours.
Oh, I'm just so lucky that it's part of my job. So.
Oh, right?
Yeah, in the evenings, because I have to pay my bills somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. But I think it's just like with like all you lovely folks. I don't know you all, but I think just getting into it, just talking about like things we have in common. And just like smiling and just talking about how nerdy we are, because at the end of the day we're just all nerds. Just like when I was LARPing, I'm like, we're all nerds like hitting each other with sticks, like that's what we're all doing. So like at the end of the day, like what's fun, what's keep it casual, like just remind like saying we are all mortals, and then when you become a character, I will forget your mortal name and only address you by your character's name now. Because that's who you are to me.
I love that. I think it's I can't imagine sitting down at a table and playing with people who I've never met before. I have terrible social anxiety, so that's like an alien concept to me. But I like that. I feel like I could do it if I indeed come off as warm as you seem to think I do. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, how can I not when I think all the good ideas come from Diana? TM.
That's a fact.
This
It's
is not
canon.
a trend that I want to run with, you guys. This is not. I do not endorse this.
That's canon. We've spent a lot of time talking about like the session 0 and the start of sessions, but I think also on our docket is talking about the end of session and doing some post game stuff. Is there anything else that we really want to get to in that session 0 talk before we move on? I say this not because I really want to move on, but because I've got some things that I'm excited to talk about in the back half.
I will say,
okay,
it is absolutely okay in your session 0s at the beginning of sessions even to ask your players to do specific things. GM should be more comfortable doing that instead of, you can lead a horse to water all you want. You cannot expect that horse to drink. That horse is probably going to wander off and do a shopping episode at some point, maybe investigate the local sewers. Like, you can't stop that horse from avoiding the water you placed before it. So if there is something, because remember, you're the GM, this game is for you too. Yeah. You should be enjoying yourself just as much as the players. So if you say, okay, we want to make sure that we get to tell this portion of the story, don't be afraid to share that information with your players too. You aren't spoiling anything for them. You are merely setting an additional expectation. And having an enjoyable game is going to be made 1,000 times easier by setting the proper expectations.
Yeah. I want to add 2 more things as well before we go to the back half. And I believe that a lot of role playing is also like improvs, and so the idea of yes and so I think a lot of just setting that up and saying if someone throws out an idea, like try running with it, try supporting it, and so sometimes I have troubles with like the person who's like the spotlight, the main character energy, and so if you're running into problems like that, I think it's really important to also ask people to support each other, like yes-anding each other, so that we have so much fun. Because like some of the best fun I've had is like having someone else have the spotlight because I gave them an ability or like a power, and then they were able to unleash the like greatest power because I was able to like give them the assist. And so that's like, it's just so fun to be able to do that as well. And as a GM, I also ask people like what they want out of the game. Do they want mechanics heavy? What's their goal? Do they really want to fall in love, find their mom? Do they really want to use the superpower of theirs? Do they really just want to explore the creepy old house? Do they why is anyone exploring the haunted house? Who knows? But you want to meet the ghost, you want to kill it, you just want to win. I really want to feel out what the characters want, and I give it to them, but I give them a lot of obstacles. I make them work for it, because that's like, if you look at story arcs, and I'm going back in my film background, a lot of you think of conflict. We have a phrase called COOTS, which is conflict, obstacles, objective, tactics, and strategies. And so what is your character wanting to do? What's their objective? How are they achieving that objective? And what's their strategy? And how are you going to put obstacles in front of it? Because once you go over obstacles, then that's like why we watch a lot of movies and a lot of shows, is because we don't want just to watch a happy couple and just be like happy all the time. They're not doing anything. They're just no. Grey's Anatomy broke my heart because of that. So you want to throw things at them to keep it exciting, and it doesn't have to be like a villain or anything like that. It could be internal conflict, because that's what we deal with all the time.
100%.
Okay, well, Josh.
This is it.
All good things must come to an end, right? All good things must come to an end. So with that, we're going from 4 to 3 in 3, 2.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
The stream isn't over, by the way, everybody. The stream isn't over. I'm gonna leave it in the hands of these three wonderful, amazing folks. But so they're gonna continue the conversation, and it's gonna be fantastic, as you can tell, because it's already been fantastic. So,
Set the bar real high.
It's gonna be really great. But I'm out. We're gonna switch to these three folks. So
You're gonna do something cool, like a bomb, like.
We said cool, Jamie. Jamie, we said cool.
Wow. Wow.
oh.
Ooh.
Emotional damage. I'm sorry, guys. It's my specialty.
Fair
All right.
point.
I think we're good.
This is.
I can't tell
yeah.
if he's actually gone yet or not. But Josh, I want to hear what thoughts you have about post-game sessions and cooldowns and stuff like that, because I know that's you're probably far better about doing those touch bases and things like that than I am, so teach me.
Far better implies that one, I am any good at it, and two, that you're not any good at it. So let's not jump the gun there, but
that's exactly what I am implying.
Okay, well, I disagree.
Do I need to explicitly say that?
I disagree fundamentally. Anyways, I am a huge proponent for doing a little after the stream check-in, where you'll take some time, even if it's just 5 minutes, to be like, and of course this can apply to a home game or a paid session or anything like that. But a huge fan of, okay, what do we think went well? Was there anything during this game where we felt like, hey, you know what, like this was uncomfortable, or hey, like I would love to really explore that more going forward. Just taking a moment to assess how this session went and what we would like to see maybe more of or less of in future sessions. And I think that's also a really great time to, if someone does in fact like feel a little uncomfortable about something, right? So, hey, like this interaction happened and like maybe I didn't say anything in the moment because I didn't feel comfortable breaking that immersion, but this just kind of has left a strange kind of aftertaste in my mouth. Can we talk about that? I think that's a really great opportunity to do kind of just a continual check-in. And while there may not be some kind of update that needs to happen to your lines and veils every single session, it's a great thing to just, hey, that was a lot of fun, really quick touch base. Did we feel good about that? Is there anything that we want to see more or less of going forward? And then that way, as perhaps something happens in someone's life and they may or may not have the exact same lines and veils going forward, you can continually update those. And sometimes you'll discover something in the midst of play, like, hey, I actually really didn't like that, and I didn't initially list it, but like I just discovered in this moment that like Igor is not for me. Let's not do that ever again. And then as a GM, you can go, oh yeah, sure, all right, I'll just mark that off of the list. That's never going to happen again. And you can move forward pretty seamlessly. So I think there's a lot of value in checking in, both for what player comfort level is, but then also, especially if there's something PvP that's happened in the session, or something where perhaps let's say you're running like what could be considered like a combative system, where the GM is maybe actively putting the players in peril and the players are actively struggling to survive. You can also do a quick check-in, like, hey, you don't hate me, right? Like we're good, because sometimes you need that.
I agree. Especially, so there are some games that are built to be combative like that, like Wraith the Oblivion. You are actively playing someone's darker shadow self, so you are supposed to be terrible to them. And when we were playing that game, I was Nora Ibrahim's shadow, having never met her before. So she and I always did a quick breakdown afterwards, like, okay, are you all right with me? Did I go too far? Where does that lie? Alyx, are you do a lot more like sort of one-off things. Do you ever do those sort of breakdown sessions afterwards with your players just to kind of collect feedback for you and maybe give them some ways that they can have more enjoyable gameplay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Josh is describing is perfect for campaigns, and also works for the one shots as well. If you're like going to be playing with these people again and time again. And I think there's like a couple things you can do. I'm currently in a heritage for Bluebird's Brown Gehenna Gaming, and it's really fantastic how we keep it up. So I guess like a couple things to do, since I also run a lot of horror games, is self-care, asking like players like decompress if they want to take any breaths, if they're okay, because it's some really heavy topics that we're doing. And I think in chat someone was asking what do you do when players just respond it was fine or have trouble elaborating. I think as a GM, just asking questions like, I noticed, like, were you comfortable with this, or like you did really well in this part, did you not like this part? It's also like you as the GM, you can ask all these questions when you notice, because you're running the game, you're able to have this. And I feel like if players aren't committed to the game, I think it's usually a sign for myself personally that something was off, but they just don't know how to communicate that, or they were uncomfortable. I think most people or they weren't engaged, and so you can ask like, why wasn't this person engaged in some way? And it could be for a variety of factors, and that's just what you have to do as a GM as well. It's like, I mean, all respects to people who GM, like, you are doing so much you're not just running the game, but you're also doing like some management here. You're trying to feel people out here. And so I think it's really important to also, some things I also do is like affirmations. I ask my players like, what is something they thought like another player did that was really cool, and to have affirmations for themselves. I think that's really difficult for them. For like us, as when I was a player, I was just like, what did I do really well? What did I like that I did? Just to affirm that, yes, like, you belong in this space. What you did was really cool. And it's just like really nice. I really love focusing on the people that are playing the game.
And it gives, again, that's more information fed back to you for how you approach games in the future. You know, if someone really enjoyed describing how they manifested some magic and performed a spell, then you know that maybe that's a good option to offer to folks in the future. You know, if someone kind of struggled with that, you know, again, to sort of dial it back and maybe assist them. What color are the sparks flying out of your fingertips right now? Does that energy move rapidly like fire, or more languidly as it gets to its target? So it gives you more information to develop as a GM too, which I think is super valuable. Paula brought up a really good question in chat about what do you do if someone says it was fine and just sort of shuts down internally. And I think, yeah, you can ask a lot of probing questions that way, but is there any other advice that you two would recommend to dungeon masters who maybe are having a harder time extrapolating that data from their players? I usually just do a quick one-on-one check-in if I feel like someone maybe was holding back a little bit and wasn't comfortable stating it in front of the group. But beyond that, what advice do you all have to offer?
You know, I certainly agree that having a quick aside conversation is really important. The great thing about playing games virtually, the way that many of us are doing so right now, is like you can just pop open a little side message while someone else is even like in the session, while someone else is doing an RP moment. You're just like, hey, just checking in, you good? Which I do often and very frequently. But I think maybe the best piece of advice that I can give you there, if you're not getting a whole lot of very detailed or helpful feedback in that post-game conversation, is after you might just do like a, hey, check in, how are you doing? Honestly, I think sometimes people need a little bit of time to formulate how they exactly feel about something. And so it's okay to be like, hey, you know, I know that maybe you don't want to talk about that right now. I'm just going to check in tomorrow and see if you've had any additional thoughts about it. And then you've planted the seed in their mind that, okay, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, and they're going to think about it. and maybe actually be able to put some words to how they're feeling. I think it's important not to like speculate and speak into what could be the issue. So for instance, I wouldn't be like, hey, Alyx, I know you probably hated it when Diana just did this thing in session, because then I'm suggesting to you that Diana has done something wrong. And suddenly I'm just creating these feelings of ill will within the group, which you try not to do. So I think it's important to just take a time to circle back around and see if you can't, maybe in a one-on-one session, maybe even like back in the before times, I used to just go out and get a drink with whomever it was. Like, okay, cool, session was yesterday. I'd text them afterwards like, hey, do you have a free like evening this week? Do you want to go grab a beer? Do you want to go grab lunch? Do you want to go grab coffee? Can we have a couple minutes just to like talk face to face? And I want to just start that by expressing how grateful I am to you for being in the session, for being in these games. And then also, I felt like maybe you weren't engaged quite as much as you normally were this past session. Is there anything going on? How can I be a good and supportive friend to you? And then also, maybe you can get at whatever the heart of the issue is there. And sometimes it's not game related. It's, hey, you know, I'm dealing with this thing in my real life and just wasn't there today.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the two of you, like myself, are very much all about you're all about the smooching games, but you're also all about the horror games. The horror games are primarily where I live, and that's one of the hardest places to just sort of immediately de-immerse yourself from, especially in games where you are a literal monster dealing with monster things. Do you guys find it beneficial to maybe do a cool down where you guys just hang out on a Zoom call afterwards for a few minutes and talk about something that isn't the game to sort of let everything settle before moving on with your day-to-day routine?
Yeah. I mean, like playing Bluebird's Bride. If anyone's ever played that, that's a very intense, like feminine horror, real life. Like, what are all the evils that like exist in this world and are experienced by women specifically, and so that can be a very heavy topic. And so, I think cooldowns are important for any game, especially for horror games. But I think at any time, like just having that quick like cool down, like just not even talking about the game, but asking, hey, like who are you outside this this game? Just like remembering it's a game, like trying to shut off. Like I think it's almost like ritualistic, this cool down. Like how, like I think everyone does it differently, but asking those questions as to like, are you okay? How are we feeling? And echoing what Josh said, if people just like believing where people are at and knowing that people are at different stages of like processing whatever they're feeling, and so checking in later, and just developing that, like I think that trust. I think that cool down is all about if there's any further feelings, what like I like to have cool downs where we just like support each other. We joke a little bit, we ask questions off screen about like who are we as people, what did you do Saturday, what did you have for breakfast, like things like that, so that we can go back into our real lives, because games are very immersive. Like I feel like every time I get out of Bluebeard's Bride, I have to remember I'm not a woman who just got like, surprise, like almost like in this murder house with their new husband. And so any way I can shuffle that off and just like hug a person, hug a cat, like be able, but like in D&D or any other games like that, just knowing that it's a game at the end of the day, and that the people around you is like why we're gaming, is to, like for me personally, to have that sense of belonging, having that sense of like I've accomplished something or achieved something, or I've been somebody that I haven't been before. I've been in this world, and so that's how I cool down.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
that. Remembering you're a person.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
important.
Yeah. Actually, Dungeon Glitch in chat brings up a really good question that I don't think we've touched on yet. So for players, do you have any thoughts on how to approach a DM to improve this type of communication, like from the outside? Josh, you're good at words. You're much better at words than I am.
Don't
I know
lie to yourself like that.
my immediate response would be just shoot him a message and say, "Hey, can we talk about X?" But any further advice? Anything that you would, as a DM or as a player, want to make sure was handled appropriately in that situation?
I think it's important to remember that the GM and the players are really all on the same ground here, right? Like, sure, there might be some additional responsibility that the role of GM has, but ultimately you're all players in the same game. You all really kind of want the same thing out of every session. And so I think good advice for players is, one, you should be invested in making sure that this session meets your needs. And so if you go into a session 0 with something you'd like to see, I think it's important to lead with that. Hey, as we get into this, I know that we're doing this, this, and this, but I also just want to make sure that we touch on this. Or, hey, can we also just like sync on this really quick? I think it's important that we talk about it. Because at the end of the day, I really do believe that you get as much out of something as you put into something. And so if you have an expectation, I want a session 0 to include this and this and this, you should bring that to the table. You can talk to the DM ahead of time. You can bring it up during that session 0, or even after a session 0. If it hasn't quite hit everything you want to do, you can circle back and say, hey, I was just thinking about this after the fact, and I know we didn't quite have time to touch on this and this. Can we just take 10 minutes at the start of the session to cover that really quickly before we move forward? At the end of the day, it's all about expectations and communicating expectations clearly. And you can only expect other people to advocate for you so much. There comes a point where you have to, if you want something to be done, make sure that it is done yourself.
That's a good thought. I mean, Alyx, you're doing this with a very short time period. So how is it that you encourage that kind of communication with your players? As you're kind of just, you're meeting them and playing with them for the first time all at the same time. So how do you establish that trust and make sure that they are comfortable approaching you with, hey, I'd really love to get into some combat before this is over?
Yeah, I think like Josh said, I think there's responsibility on both sides, for sure. I think as like the GM, we a little bit more responsibility falls on our shoulders just because we're expected to like run the game. But you know, PBTA is a collaborative. Like, I really love PBTA. I run a lot of that because I think it's like we're all players trying to create the same story. We're collaborating, and and so we all have a part in creating the story that we want as a table. And so establishing trust 101 really quick. I think it's just, you have to give space. You have, like, I ask questions and I get really uncomfortable with silence, but you know, over time I've again, like, remembering how people learn, how people process things differently. I just ask. I think you, like, just ask the question, like, is there anything I missed? Like, I think to be humble as myself, and just remembering that everyone at the table wants to have a fun time. So if I ask the question, like, how can we, like, what do we want to bring up, and no one is at the table, silence doesn't necessarily mean a yes, or it could also just mean, like, I'm thinking. It's just giving that, like, 1-2 second time, and just know that now I feel very comfortable with silence. I think it gives people time to just, like, gather the thoughts, and just leaving the door open, saying, like, if at any time you have a different thought, like, the door is open, like, feel free to, like, interrupt me at this time. Like, I just think, like, giving people, just, like, saying it, like, whatever you're thinking on your mind, like, remembering other people might have, like, the same question at the table. I think it's important to give space, because I think a lot of times, because I'm such an extrovert, introverts really want that invitation, and they don't have that invitation if everyone's talking at the same time. Mm-hmm. But to give that space, so that when that person feels like they have a window, they can take it.
I think one of the best pieces of not only game advice, but also life advice that I can impart upon anyone that I meet is no one is intentionally trying to hurt you with an action. People are not inherently evil like that. I have a little faith in humanity left. I don't think people are inherently trying to hurt anyone else taking an action. So if Josh and I are playing in a game, and Josh is my DM, and he did something that I, as a player at that table, was uncomfortable with, I need to take a step back and realize that Josh was not trying to make me uncomfortable. He was not trying to hurt my pride or my personal feelings of safety or anything like that. And just to say, hey, I know it wasn't intentional. That preface has saved me so many difficult conversations and hurt feelings. I know it wasn't intentional, but when you did X, it made me feel Y. Because that, again, is setting a proper expectation of, this is my reaction as a player. I didn't like it. Can we avoid that in the future? So it's nuanced conversation, but no one's trying to hurt you. I think is really the biggest piece to impart, and especially I'm super introverted, so I do need an invitation to voice those opinions and make that discomfort known. Because you're right, the GM, the DM always feels a little more responsible for making sure things run smoothly and go the way that they are supposed to. That actually leads into a really good question that we got a little bit ago from FM Marion I : boy, I'm sure I butchered that terribly. How do you discuss manage in session 0 and beyond, where one or more people in the group tend to lean back or watch more, while others who are more creatively or others are more creatively or performance forward in the way that they're playing? So how do you, as the game master, deal with a dichotomy in the way that people are approaching the game in terms of engagement? I personally think this leads back to proper expectations being set at the very beginning of the game, what you want, what you don't want. But Alyx, Josh, what are your feelings on the question?
Yeah, I think, Diana, great ideas. You had TM. I'm going to have to remember that no one's actively going out to hunt me and hurt me. I love it. Love it. I'm going to just hype. But also, I think, not only in addition, like those expectations, sometimes you can't control it in game. Sometimes you do have very like creatively or performance like strong forward individuals. I think as some tips and tricks I have as a GM, if you don't feel like you have that time to like necessarily pull someone out, is I do split the scenes. I do split the party in some way. I think like as a DM, you do have some control the narrative, and so I feel that someone is very strong and someone's just like leaning back, because sometimes I feel like if someone's very strong, I lean back because I feel very like maybe just like very scared or off put by I was extremely strong performance, and I've had players put that before. So what I do is I try to highlight and spotlight that character instead. I put them in a different situation where they're maybe not with that spotlit character, and I get them to work something out, and I ask them a lot of questions. I make sure
you give them another spotlight.
Yeah, I give them another spotlight. Like you have the, like, I think there's a lot of tools. You can give someone else a spotlight. The other players are really good. If you're a player, you can like ask someone to participate in an activity with you, or be like, come hunt the bear with me, and like drag them in. I think it's the responsibility of the table. I have really good people I game with at home where people are being like, hey, come with me, do this. And I asked, and like, I guess one of the big questions is, what do you want to do? How do you handle that? Like, are you like just asking again questions? You have these tools. Shine the spotlight again. If it's a stage, shine it somewhere else, give someone another scene so that it can focus on them.
I think presenting those opportunities to have that creative outlet is wildly important. Josh, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love the idea of moving the spotlight and also shining an additional spotlight. I used to do like technical theater for a couple of years. And so like we have more than one spotlight in the theater. We can just
only one.
shine.
Only one ever.
We can have multiple spotlights. It's fine. But I think sometimes if a player is sitting back, being quiet, letting other people happen, it is often a result of, one, they don't know what they're supposed to do or don't know what they want to do, and two, maybe don't feel comfortable stepping into whatever the moment is. And so in those situations, I try to either invite them into the moment. So, okay, cool, while that's happening, so-and-so, what are you doing? Talk to me about, what's going on in your mind. Are you working on anything in the side? Kind of intentionally shifting the focus for a moment so that they can have an invitation to step in and do something, because maybe that's enough. But also I try to design my sessions so that there is an opportunity and a moment where each different character is going to have a chance to shine. And so if I find that one player and their character isn't really engaging with what's happening so much, I may try to rearrange my session to give them their spotlight moment first, to see if perhaps we can't bring them out of the shell by letting them feel like, in this moment, my character is the important and significant one. Obviously, there could be something interpersonal going on that might require more of a conversation outside of the session. I have certainly seen it where one person at the table rubs the other person the wrong way and they're just not meshing well. Ideally, you should be able to figure that out during a session 0 or ahead of a session 0, but sometimes that crops up in session and you've got to adjust. But I think, again, it really kind of comes down to figuring out, okay, what is happening here, and then doing your best to set expectations and communicate clearly and effectively to try and identify the issue and then resolve it as easily as possible.
Good life skills too, right?
Good
life skills.
Soft skills.
Thank you guys so much. So it looks like we are coming up on our time here, even though I feel like we could do another 3 hours of this and still not run out of cool stuff to talk about in terms of setting proper expectations at the table. Yeah. But for today, hey Josh, who are you and what do you have going on?
Hey, my name is Josh. You can find me on the internet at Joshua M. Simons on all social media platforms. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Joshua Simons. I am the community and content manager at Demiplane. I am also the assistant director of ambassadors with Jasper's Game Day. I stream on Twitch. I write and publish things. I'm a pretty goofy person on the internet. And apparently I've signed myself up for getting a new pair of leggings. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Alyx. Who are you? What you got going on?
Hi everyone, I'm Alyx. You can find me on Twitter and itch at Daredevil Alyx. Unlike Josh, I haven't committed that much to the internet quite yet, so I'm gonna find those avenues to do
it's
so.
It's a fad anyway. It'll go away in a couple years.
Yeah, but Diana, your good ideas are never gonna be a fad. They're trending. They're always gonna be. They're timeless. So that's what I'm committing to the internet. There you go. I really work in the space of TTRPGs and the media to try to increase more queer representation. So when in doubt, I'm always as gay and as Asian as possible in any space that I can be. And so thanks so much for inviting me into this space. Yeah, I'm a TTRPG writer, streamer. I am right now in Gehenna Gaming Heritage Horror Bluebeard's Bride, where I take on many sisters who are going through a very interesting fairy folktale. Who did we marry? You'll have to find out. And going through a haunted house. And then at the end of the month, I'll be with friends who roll dice, and we'll be doing a stream for to raise money for a rape crisis center, and we'll be running Avatar. And so thank you so much for having me. Loved talking about all this.
And I'm still Diana DiMicco. That hasn't changed over the course of the past hour. I am the partnership manager over at Die Hard Dice, so I do a lot of cool stuff in the community, making dice with neato folks. I'm also one half of Bard and Barbarian. Right now, the only other thing that I have on my calendar that I can think about right now is For Renegade Con this evening at 6:30 Pacific time, I'll be doing a panel with trivia to chit chat about building antagonists into your Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles. We'll be talking about the Sabbat and the Second Inquisition. Very excited about that. And I actually think we're about to kick it over to Renegade Games with a raid right now. But first, let's just do a really quick round of applause for Chaotic Tiefling Productions for creating this amazing and super smooth running stream for us. You guys should go check out the BeNeverending.app website and build yourself some characters there. It's super neat. And join us again next week, where next Saturday morning we'll be here talking about NPCs and building deep and immersive NPCs into your campaign. So I think that's it for us. So everyone have a wonderful Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.